All right, so I had not intended to originally break up this community pot. It is Cattleya Small World by Cattleya Summer Spot. It's from H&R Nurseries. And when I first got it in the spring, the plants in it were pretty small, and I had not intended to break it up. So basically I got it, I think June, and it's basically grown a lot. I have some big plants in it. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and try to break it up before the winter and hope that they survive. And that's what today's video is usually I divide up my community pots, I actually divided up 2 already. This summer 3, and I didn't video them, but I'm gonna video this one. Community pot dividing isn't splitting, what do you want to call it, isn't all that exciting. I've have several videos where I've done it already, almost always on H&R community pots. I don't know a lot of other community pot sources. Most of mine are from H&R, and they usually come in this like sort of pro mix. It's sphagnum peat moss, the same stuff that potting soil is made out of. They usually put styrofoam at the very bottom, and then they mix so pro mix is basically sphagnum peat moss and perlite. So that's the white stuff. It's the perlite right there, and this is wet, so it just comes right off. The community pots from H&R are really, really nice. They have a lot of plants in them. I usually get 30 some plants out of one, and we'll count it today to see how many I get out of this. And if you leave them in the community pot too long, then you have a lot of death. A lot of plants die, and then eventually I take them out and you only get like 1 or 2 plants out of it. So it's important to try to take your community pot apart at the right time. And H&R usually sends community pots. They're just pretty much ready to come out when you get them. They charge between $25 and $50 for a community pot. So it's a really good deal. You usually get really big plants, like you can see this one's pretty large already. So it's a really, really good deal. I really quite like them. And of course it's a crapshoot, right? So you get plants that are really big like this, and you get teeny tiny little ones, which may make it, I'm gonna make plugs out of the really small ones, and then I'll probably mount one of the really big ones. That will require me to find more mounting material if I want to mount it. I have been, knock on wood, doing really well with my mounts, especially this year, especially in the summer, because I remember to water them. But basically, at this stage of the community pot, you notice that all the material came off really easily, and I can basically just pull all the seedlings apart in the community pot. And so this is the right time to do it. Not too late. When you do it too late, it's also really easy to separate them. That's because 90% of everything in the community pot is dead. So you don't want to wait until everything is dead, and that's why it's easy to unpot. But you don't want to get a community pot that's really overgrown, and then it's really hard to separate, because then you end up breaking a lot of roots in the process. And so you can rinse these little plantlets as they come out to get the pro mix off, or you can, I'm going to actually spray everything with a hose after I've separated it. So this is step 1, just me separating the little plants out, and you can see I can just tug this, well, I say that and then I can't tug it loose. So the roots will kind of grow and attach themselves to each other. So I just have to figure out how this one's attached. It's made like a little root cluster right here, and there we go. Ta-da! It's loose. So I usually just go through and I just sort of finger separate everything first. You shouldn't have to cut or snip. It's water helps, you know, having moist. You don't want to do it dry, right? Just like regular repotting, you want to do it wet, you know, where everything is nice and moist. I watered this morning on this, so I didn't have to re-wet anything in here to get it apart. I'm getting a nice number of plants out right now. If something is too like well stuck together, then I'll just repot that whole thing as one chunk. So like this right here, which is looking like it might be a cluster. So this right here, it doesn't feel that loose, but I suspect just based on the sizing, so see how that just kind of came out. There's probably actually more than one plant here. So I'll probably just pot this up as a big lump rather than trying to tease it apart, because it seems pretty firm the way it is. And you don't want to disturb that. What'll happen with something like that is usually the little ones will die. And so competition for water and light and stuff. So the little ones will die, and then you just pluck them off later. It's like this is the same thing, but you see it's got this tiny little leaf right there. So I suspect there's probably more than one on this one, but it's also pretty firm. So when I shake it, it doesn't come apart and it doesn't really wobble. So we'll leave it together. So one last big cluster. Everything else is already divided up. Clean this area. All right, so there's another one. So you see they just kind of come right apart if you separate your community pot at the right time. Sometimes when I've waited too long, they're really entwined and it's hard to get them apart. And then you can't really kind of pot them up. They just end up being these big lumps of plants. And so you just see how easy that is. So this is the right time. You can take the really, like that's a dead root. I can just pluck that off very gently and throw it away. It's like Julia Child throwing her cut bits of stuff underneath her workspace. Everyone thought is throwing it on the floor, but she's really throwing it in the trash. I actually am just throwing it on the floor, unlike Julia Child, because I am I'm outside. I can use a broom later and sweep it up. Or I can just let it blow somewhere like into my garden beds. So that is, I think, almost everything. Oh, here's another one. Here's another. See, they just separate, right? Once you go, and then you have ones that are just like, this is probably unsalvageable right there. And that is one piece by itself. So that's it. Now everything has to get washed. All right, so washing them on the outside. It just gets all the extra pomix off, cleans them up a little bit. All right, so out of this community pot, I've gotten 11 really nice ones, and then I've gotten sort of 11 medium grade ones and 2 sort of really crappy ones. And so I'll definitely turn these little guys into plugs. Don't know if they'll make it. If you've ever listened to one of Fred Clark's talks about how he grows, he would cull these and just compost them, but I can't bear to do that. So I will grow them until they die, and then I will compost them, because I like to give everything a chance. But for sure, these big ones will make it if I remember to water them this coming winter. All right, so I make plugs into 6-well, I don't know, seed starter, whatever they call them. Just like regular ones, and I use sphagnum moss for my plugs. So I just wrap the moss around them and I just put them in. I just use these 6-cell trays for this because like a pot is going to be too big for these guys. And this is long grain New Zealand sphagnum moss. Just put them in like this, and then if I'm going to combine them because they're so small, and oh, I had one on the ground I forgot, so this little guy, which I really should throw out, I'm going to keep it and add it to this little plug together because I'm I don't know, crazy, and I think it'll live. You will live, live, little thing, live. All right. Stick it over there. So it's pretty repetitive. Just wrap the moss around the plug, and I stick it in a hole. Pretty standard, simple. And so far things have been doing really well in this setup. Again, the biggest problem this winter is going to be where am I going to put all these guys, because I bet they're going to go on the floor, and these are small enough that Pinto's going to eat them. So the real problem, it isn't that they go on the floor and there's anything inherently wrong with the floor, except that the floor is not, it's not, I mean, it's just basically snack height for Pinto. So it's more of an what is it? It is too close to Pinto, and he's going to eat these. And he has decimated entire crops, entire trays of my orchids before. I mean, seedlings are just tender, and I mean, you know, like once he's eaten them, I mean, he eats enough and then he just vomits them up, and there's just not much left. So one of the things I'm going to share today is a link to a website that I started because Google, so it's a Google page, and Google's made their pages easier to do now. And I thought this way I could at least have a running list of what I have available, like to share, mostly to quote unquote sell, and this way if people want to shop, they can shop there. There's no cart. It's not like, you know, you can shop via PayPal or anything like that. There's not a professional shopping thing, but at least there'll be a list for people, and then they can email me if they really want to buy a plant, and we'll see how well that works. Right now, of course, there's lots of time due to COVID. I don't have to commute 2 hours to work. I like to say that because, trust me, my commute is not any fun. And so I can keep up with things like a website. I have a suspicion that once we solve COVID, though at the current rate, it looks like we won't have a vaccine widely available until next fall, 2021. So I'll have like another year to try to maintain this website. But you know, if I go back to work and have to do my commute every day, I can see the whole thing just kind of collapsing and ceasing to work very well. So we'll see how it goes, and look for the link in the description to this video in case you're interested in seeing what I have available. And we'll see how it goes. I don't really want to be a commercial seller. I love community pots. I love breaking up community pots. I always feel like, I don't know, like, especially with H.R. like this one. So I got 25 plants out of this, you know, like, woo, I have so many plants. Makes me really happy, and I want to share that. But on the other hand, I also don't want to go into debt sharing my orchids with other people. Moss and stuff all cost money, and so we'll see how it goes. So here we go, last one. And so that is one whole plug tray, and then I will stick tags in this to mark what they are so I don't forget.